Hello, I'm Elspeth Bray. Welcome to my gallery in Sussex. Lockdown was an opportunity for many artists to spend time in their studio, away from the normal pressures of life. A time for reflection, for playing, and painting for paint's sake. The work is fresh, heartfelt and unlaboured. And even though we are still distant from our friends and families, I am truly thrilled that this show has brought some of our artists back together again.
During lockdown, I like to use still life in the foreground and then often a window behind. It gave me the opportunity to paint about the world beyond the comfort and familiarity of home, juxtaposed with a world outside, sort of beckoning me to return. I really wanted to intensify the sense of safety and enclosure of my home, whilst expressing my longing for places physically distanced, but very much present in my mind.
In a lot of ways, my working day has altered very little during the lockdown period. I'm quite a dedicated gardener, and it has given me more time to spend in my own plot. I've been building wildlife areas and observing them more intensely than I had time to do before, and that finds its way into my work.
Lockdown has had some surprising benefits. Instead of going for long walks along the South Downs with my sketchbook, I found myself confined to the garden. I've never painted it before, but it has become my new landscape. Never has nature appeared so vibrant. My garden has become my inspiration during this period of isolation. It has given a sense of freedom and peace during these troubled times.
Since lockdown, I've been able to spend more time in my studio and realise just how much time for drifting I need as an artist. I've returned to an earlier project begun 3 years ago, painting household objects. Paying attention to the everyday, they are a distillation of earlier work, reminding myself, here I am, the artist in residence at home.
Lockdown hasn't altered very much for me. My studio is at home and my environment informs my paintings. I walk every day and I'm fascinated with the tiny changes that happen in the hedgerows and fields. Nature and flowers can tap into our emotions and are a trigger for our own storehouse of memories. And painting and the exploration and possibility with paint are as important as the subject.
Within my paintings, I aim to reflect a sense of place and the more elemental side of Cornwall. The coast has been a peaceful constant in this time of crisis. More than ever, I'm appreciating the restorative power of nature and the surrounding landscape.
For a long time, I found it very hard to get in the right headspace. When I did find myself back in the studio, I found myself returning to the places that gave me a strong sense of self and which brought calm and contemplation. I had to dig deep into my memory and use old photographs and sketches. The place I sought out was the banks of the River Nid in North Yorkshire, the river of my youth.
I live quite isolated down here on the River Dart with my husband, and I made the dancers as part of the gratitude journals in appreciation of living by the river and having so much more time for one another and for nature. In contrast, my doctor daughter worked at the Nightingale Hospital before it was shut down, and it made a profound impression on her. Heads and faces are a recurrent theme in my work, And one day we'll be back to what we have missed most, which is good conversation at close quarters with those we love most, our close family and our old friends.
I'm enjoying my alone time and the familiar ways of playing and making. I'm taking more time to fiddle in the details that make up my sculptures. I found it comforting collecting the discarded bones, feathers and putting them to purposeful use.
My studio has become such a welcome and vital refuge for me during lockdown. Suddenly, having very few outside pressures and so much time, I've felt free to play in the studio, and the outcome has been that I've been producing loads of little paintings each day, which I've then sold on Instagram to support the NHS. It's made me feel that my art has now a greater sense of purpose and has consolidated in my mind the reason why I just have to paint to keep sane.
Lockdown has suited me. I'm pretty introverted and ever occupied by painting. Recently I've been drawn to the classics theme of the figure in a landscape. I don't intentionally put a sense of isolation into my work. I'm really only concerned with juggling the formal elements of the painting. That being said, I'm aware that many observers have noted themes of isolation and solitude in my work.
My current exhibition at the Southampton City Art Gallery was put on lockdown just after a few days. It hopes to reopen around mid-July. Having the exhibition closed so soon after its triumphal opening was of course disappointing after so much work and preparation, but at least it had been seen and will live on in the dark. The works shown here are closely related to some of those in Southampton.
For the past 3 months, the studio has remained a room in which I spend much of my time. Artists are often isolated in this manner, I think, but of course, lockdown has had an effect, mentally, emotionally, which is rather difficult to measure.
During the lockdown, I missed those places with views into the distance, right to the far horizon. I find myself painting and wishing I was there. I return to images of barns. These are archetypal images, things out of time. They could be new, they could be very old. To me, they held a lot of hope, a sense of continuation and a solid presence.